Buy Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, sweeping changes. The draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution gazetted today, paving the way for overhaul of presidential stumbling blocks. The right response. EU ambassador says GSP Plus ready and waiting for Sri Lankan government response and pays tribute to Sri Lankan resilience.
If there is a positive situation on human rights, there's GSP Plus until 2025. The GDP per capita in Europe is still 3 times on average than in China and 15 times of India.
Carte blanche. Easter Commission told of 7 extremist organizations that continue to operate unabated due to ex-president's myopic decision. Rapid reaction. Sri Lanka Air Force and Navy launches major operation in response to oil tanker fire off Ampara coast. All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 3rd of September 2020.
නව sunlight sakura. දැන් දිකුකල් පවතින sakura මල් සුවඳින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando. Moving on to your top stories for tonight. The draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was issued today, offering sweeping changes to stumbling blocks to executive powers. Following cabinet approval of the draft bill yesterday, it was handed over to the government printer and will be presented in Parliament after 14 days. Meanwhile, Attorney General Dappula de Oliveira had earlier advised the Secretary to the Ministry of Justice that the draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution will not require the holding of a public referendum and can instead be enacted through a 2/3 parliamentary majority.
The draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was presented by Minister of Justice Ali Sabri at the Cabinet meeting held yesterday. Following Cabinet approval of the draft bill, the Gazette was issued after it was handed over to the government printer. The bill is due to be presented in Parliament after 14 days. The proposed draft constitutional amendment reportedly will seek to remove all provisions in the 19th Amendment except the right to information, presidential and parliamentary terms of 5 years, and the number of terms the president can serve. The Attorney General yesterday advised the Secretary to the Ministry of Justice that the draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution will not require the holding of a public referendum as per the terms of Article number 83 of the Constitution. The Attorney General had therefore informed the Justice Secretary that the bill may be enacted by Parliament with a 2/3 majority. The highlights of the draft bill include the abolishing of the Constitutional Council introduced by the 19th Amendment, as well as their right to appoint members to independent commissions. With the amendment, the President will henceforth appoint the Chief Justice, the Supreme Court Justices, the Chairman of the Court of Appeal and its judges, the Attorney General, the Inspector General of Police, the Auditor General and the Ombudsman. Further, the clause preventing the President from dissolving Parliament for 4.5 years has been removed, and the President will have the opportunity to dissolve Parliament again after just 1 year. Also removed is the clause where the President should appoint the Cabinet on the instructions of the Prime Minister. The amendment also removes the clause that limits the Cabinet to 30 members and 40 for non-Cabinet ministers, and also the clause preventing dual citizens from contesting the presidential and parliamentary elections. The 20th Amendment will also allow the President to remove the Prime Minister and members of the Cabinet and retain their portfolios and ministries. The 20th Amendment will also give the President the opportunity to retain certain subjects or functions. Further, the President will also be responsible for appointing the 3 members of the Election Commission and appointing one of them as the Chairman. Meanwhile, co-cabinet spokesman Uday Gamampila revealed that a 9-member committee of legal experts has been appointed to draft a new constitution. The committee will be chaired by President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva and will include President's Counsels Manohara De Silva, Gamani Marapana, Sanjiva Jayawardena and Samantha Ratwatta, as well as Professor Nadima Kamurdeen, Professor G.H. Piris, Professor Vasanta Seviratna and Dr. A. Sarveshwaran.
නව ව්‍යවස්ථාව සම්පාදනය කිරීමේ කටයුත්තට අවශ්‍ය විශේෂඥ කමිටුව පත් කිරීම ඊ අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩල රැස්වීමේ සිදු වුණා. ඒ අනුව සමාජිකයන් 9 දෙනෙක්ගෙන් යුත් විශේෂඥ කමිටුවක් ඊයේ දිනේදී නව ව්‍යවස්ථාව සම්පාදනය කිරීම වෙනුවෙන් අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලය පත් කළා. ඒ සභාපති ධූරය දරන්නේ ජනාධිපති නීතිඥ රොමේෂ් සිල්වා මහතා. නව ව්‍යවස්ථාවක් සම්පාදනය කිරීමේ ක්‍රියාවලියට යම් කාලයක් ගතවන නිසා එතෙක් ව්‍යවස්ථාව හරහා ආණ්ඩුව මුණ දී ඇති දුෂ්කරතාවයන් මගහැර ගැනීමේ අරමුණෙන් කෙටි කාලීන අවශ්‍යතාවයක් ලෙස 20 වන සංශෝධනයේ ලෙස නව ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනයක් ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමට අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩල අනුමැතිය ලැබුණා. එෙහිදී නීති කෙටුම්පත්වරිය විසින් ඉදිරිපත් කරන ලද නිරීක්ෂණත් එය ජනමත විචාරණයකට තුඩු දෙන කිසිම කාරණයක් අඩංගු නොවන බවට නීතිපතිවරයා ඉදිරිපත් කර මතයක් කියන දෙකම දීර්ඝ සාකච්ඡාවට ලක් කරමින් අවසානයේදී එය ගැසට් මගින් ප්‍රසිද්ධ කිරීම සඳහා අධිකරණ අමාත්‍යවරයාට අවසරය ලබා දුන්නා.
Enjoy a very smooth shave with the Bic Easy 2 razor. Bic Easy 2.
Samagi Jana Balawegya parliamentarian Mujibur Rahman says that the 20th amendment is an attempt to give the excessive powers of the executive presidency to the president once again, which was abolished by the 19th amendment. Addressing a media briefing at the party headquarters, he added that the dual citizens will also get a chance to enter parliament with the abolition of the 19th amendment.
තමුන්නාන්සල දන්නවා නීතිපතිතුමා පත් කළේ ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවෙන්, පොලිස්පතිතුමා පත් කරේ ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවෙන්, ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේ විනිශ්චයකරුවන් පත් කරේ ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවෙන්, අභ්‍යාචනාකරණ අධිකරණයේ සභාපතිතුමා පත් කරේ ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවෙන්. ජනාධිපතිතුමා නෙමෙයි. 19 වෙනින් අපි ඒ ඔක්කොම ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවට පැවරුවා. එතකොට නැවත මේ බලය ජනාධිපතිතුමාට පවරලා තියෙනවා. මොකද තත්ත්වය එතකොට වෙන්නේ මේ 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය හරහා මේ නැවත මේ යන්නේ විධායක ජනාධිපති ක්‍රමයේ තිබුණු අසීමිත බලතල නැවත වතාවක් ජනාධිපතිතුමාට පැවරීමේ සංශෝධනයක් තමයි මේ ගේන්නේ. එහෙම නැතුව රටේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ ශක්තිමත් කිරීමටවත් රටේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ශක්තිමත් කිරීමටවත් එක පුද්ගලයාගේ අතේ කේන්ද්‍රගත වෙච්ච බලය අඩු කිරීමවත් නෙමෙයි. දැන් 19 වෙනි සංශෝධනයේ අවශ්‍ය වෙනවත් එක්කම අර දිත්වපුරසි භාවයක් දැන් අවශ්‍ය වෙලා යනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ දිත්වපුරසි භාවයේ තියෙන අයටත් දැන් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට එන්න පුළුවන් 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය සම්මත වුණාම. මේ 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනයේ එක කටයුත්තක් තමයි බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයාවත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ගේන්නේ. එතකොට අපිට පේනවා මේක එක රටක් එක නීතියක් නෙමෙයි, එක රටක් එක පවුලක් කියන ව්‍යාපෘතියට තමයි මේ ක්‍රමයෙන් මේ රටේ ව්‍යවස්ථාව සංශෝධනය කරමින් මේ තල්ලු වෙන්නේ.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Former Chief Minister of the North Central Province S. Simranjit urged the government to hold provincial council elections before the 20th amendment is brought to Parliament. He also voiced disapproval of statements made by Rear Admiral Dr. Sarath Veerasekara recently on the need for provincial council elections, claiming that his comments do not represent the standpoint of the government and the SLPP.
සබරගමු පළාත් සභාවත්, උතුරුමැද පළාත් සභාවත්, නැගෙනහිර පළාත් සභාවත් කියන පළාත් සභා තුනේ නිල කාලය අවසන් වෙලා මේ මාසේ 27 වෙනිදාට හරියටම අවුරුදු 3ක් සම්පූර්ණ වෙනවා. ඉතින් පහුගිය යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව මේ මැතිවරණය දවසින් දවස කල් තිබ්බ පළාත් සභාව අපිට තියන්න ඉඩකඩ හදා දුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි අද යෝජනා සම්මතයකින් අපි ආණ්ඩුවට යෝජනා කළේ හැකියපමණ ඉක්මනින් අපිට මේ පළාත් සභා මැතිවරණය තියන්න අපිට හදලා දෙන්නට කියලා. ඉතින් අපි දැක්ක පහුගිය දවස්වල අපේ රාජ්‍ය ඇමතිතුමා සරත් වීරසේකර මැතිතුමා යම් මත ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා පළාත් සභා මේ ක්‍රමවේදය පිළිබඳව. හැබැයි අපි කියන්නට ඕන මේ වෙනකොට ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණ පක්ෂයේවත් රජයේවත් රජයක් හැටියට එහෙම කිසිම ප්‍රකාශයක් අද කරලා නැහැ. ඒ අපි අද සංසදයක් හැටියට අපි ඒකමතිකව අපි සරත් වීරසේකර මැතිතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශය පිළිබඳව අපේ අප්‍රසාදය පළ කරන්නත් අපි අද යෝජනාවක් සම්මත කරගත්තා කියන එක අපි කියන්නට ඕන. දැන් සමහරු පළාත් සභාව සුදු වලියෙක් කියලා කියනවා අපිට ඇහිලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් එහෙමනම් කොරෝනා මේ රටේ තදින්ම ක්‍රියාත්මක කියන වෙලාවේදී කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයයි අධිකරු ජනාධිපතිතුමයි අගමැතිතුමයි විතරයි රට පාලනය කළේ. ඉතින් එහෙමනම් ඒ අයටත් තිබුණා පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයට කලින් කියන්නේ නැහැ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවත් ඕනේ නැහැ කියලා.
දැන් සමහර අය ඉන්න පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ පහුගිය මැතිවරණේ පරාද වෙලා මේ මැතිවරණේ ජයග්‍රහණය ලබනකොට මොකද ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාගේ හයියේ ජනරල්ලට මුවාවෙන් ඇවිල්ලා වැඩි බණාපඩම් අද තනිව ප්‍රකාශ කරමින් ඉන්න විවිධ තනතුරු ධර්ම. ඒක අපි එලා දකින්න. මොකද මේක සියලු දෙනා එක රාශියලා ආපු ගමනක්. හැබැයි අපි එකක් කියනවා. ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා පහුගිය 2019 නොවැම්බර් 16 වෙනිදා පරාද වුණා නම් එහෙම ඔය අද විවිධ ඔය මම හිතන්නේ යෝජනා කරන සමුදේවිය මම හිතන්නේ දෙකෙන් පංගුවක්වත් ඉතුරු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේම කියන්න ඕනේ 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනය ගේනවනම් ඒ ගේන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා අපි මේක කන්නේ තියන්න තමයි අපි යෝජනා කරගත්තේ අපි සංසදයේ හැටියට අපි ඉල්ලීමක් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ.
The Cabinet of Ministers have granted their approval for the construction and operation of 3 oil storage tanks within the Kolonnava terminal for a contracted amount of 942 million rupees following a proposal put forth by the Minister of Energy. Among the many decisions made, the Cabinet has also given the green light to amend the national policy on natural gases in Sri Lanka. The national policy was amended by a committee appointed back in February to inspect and table the required amendments to the draft national policy on natural gases in the country. Meanwhile, speaking at the cabinet media briefing, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Ramesh Patirana elaborated on the key reasons behind the suspension of vehicle imports into the country.
About 2,000 vehicle permits have been issued, probably by the previous government. Then what will happen to those permits?
Dr. P.B. Jasner very clearly stated the fact that we are not going to import vehicles for the time being, but those permit holders, they can use their permit to purchase a vehicle from the local market, deducting the value of the permit. So they have the chance of purchasing a vehicle from the local market, because we have seen that the market is flooded with a lot of vehicles. So we don't see any need to import further vehicles. Two sides, actually, we have too many vehicles in the country. On the other side, we have a foreign exchange issue. So to curtail those two matters, the permit holders can purchase a vehicle from the local market by utilizing their permit. Sellers will reduce the value of the permit.
ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට එන තෙල් නැවක් දවස් කීපයක් පරක්කු වුණත් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ තෙල් හිගයක් ඇති වෙනවා. පසුගිය ආණ්ඩුව සමයේ මම හිතන්නේ අපි දෙවරක් ඒක අත්විඳා. ඒ නිසා අපි තීරණය කරලා තියෙනවා රුපියල් මිලියන 942ක වියදමෙන් ඝන මීටර් 29000ක ධාරිතාවකින් තෙල් ගබඩා ටැංකි 3ක් කොළොන්නාව තෙල් ගබඩා සංකීර්ණයේ ඉදිකිරීමට ඊයේ දිනේදී අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයේ අනුමැතිය ලැබුණා.
More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In more news, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry investigating the Easter Sunday attacks was told that the decision by former President Maithripala Sirisena to only ban 2 out of the 9 extremist organizations operating in the country gave them a carte blanche to continue their program unabated. This was revealed during the testimony of a Maulavi who was not identified, who also revealed that significant Saudi financial support continues to stream into these organizations through alternative means due to increased focus by the government following the Easter Sunday attacks.
The Presidential Commission of Inquiry investigating the Easter Sunday attacks yesterday heard evidence from a Maulavi whose identity was not revealed to the media. The Maulavi told the Commission that even after the Easter attacks, certain extremist groups were still engaged in conducting extremist sermons and propagating Wahhabi ideology throughout the country. The Maulavi also revealed that financial support was streaming in from Saudi Arabia for these campaigns and were now being channeled through alternative routes due to the government's increased focus on the issue after the attacks. He added that although an opportunity to eradicate extremism arose after the attacks, the opportunity was lost due to a decision taken by former President Maithripala Sirisena to ban only 2 out of the 9 extremist organizations in operation in the country. He added that the remaining 7 organizations were carrying out their programs better than before. The Maulavi revealed that Islamic organizations and groups such as the Tawhid Jamaat, the Tablighi Jamaat, the Salafis and the Shura Council were still spreading extremism. Meanwhile, the Director of the Department of Muslim Affairs, Adam Baba Muhammad Ashraf, told the Commission today that a proposal will be submitted to the Ministry of Education soon to remove extremist and Wahhabi teachings contained in Islamic textbooks. He added that it was a positive move that the Ministry of Muslim Affairs, which was a separate ministry during the good governance regime, has been brought under the Ministry of Buddha Sasana and Religious Affairs by the present government. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has rejected a motion filed by a petitioner seeking an order directing the Secretary of the Presidential Commission probing the Easter Sunday attacks to make all fresh evidence uncovered through its inquiries available to the Supreme Court. The request by a motion was made yesterday by the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and attorney-at-law Modita Ekanaika, who have filed fundamental rights petitions alleging a violation of fundamental rights by the authorities' failure to act to prevent a terrorist attack. The petition claimed that former State Intelligence Service Director Nilanth Jayawardena had provided limited information, and hence the petitioner stated that it was important to call any new evidence not included earlier but provided by him at the Presidential Commission. President's Counsel Faiza Mustafa, appearing for former President Maithripala Sirisena, one of the respondents in the fundamental rights petition, told the court that he was opposed to summoning the Commission of Inquiry's evidence to the Supreme Court as it would be prejudicial to the former president. Following this, Additional Solicitor General Farzana Jamil, who appeared for the Attorney General, informed court that with the Presidential Commission appointed by the President, according to the Presidential Commission Act, the Commission is only responsible to report to the President. She added further that the petitioners had failed to explain to the court under what legal provisions they were making the request. After considering the facts, the 7-judge bench headed by Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya decided to dismiss the petitioner's request. Meanwhile, remanded MP Sivanesa Ture Chandrakanthan, alias Pillian, was summoned to appear before the police unit of the Presidential Commission today. Having arrived at 8:30 a.m. in the custody of prison guards, the MP left the Commission premises after recording a 6-hour statement.
An oil tanker en route to India from Kuwait caught fire 38 nautical miles off the coast of Ampara this morning. Due to fire and rescue operations launched by the Sri Lanka Air Force and Navy, 22 of the ship's 23 crew have been rescued and accounted for, while no information has surfaced on the remaining crew member as yet. Meanwhile, Managing Director of Lanka IOC Manoj Gupta says that this incident will pose no threat to Sri Lanka's supply of crude oil.
An oil tanker that was en route from the Mina Al Ahmadi port in Kuwait to India's Paradip Post east coast had caught fire 38 nautical miles off the Sangamankanda coast of Ampara. The origin of the fire is believed to be a gas leak in the ship's galley, which had spread to the engine room. The vessel, identified as the New Diamond, a very large crude carrier chartered by the Indian Oil Corporation, was carrying the equivalent of about 2 million barrels of oil. With the fire reported to have begun at around 7:45 a.m., the Sri Lankan Navy and the Air Force swiftly launched fire and rescue operations. The Sayura and Ranavasi ships as well as a Dwara craft were used for this purpose, while the Air Force observed the situation from a Beechcraft aircraft. Navy spokesman Captain Indica de Silva said that out of the ship's crew of 23, 22 have been accounted for, with one out of them reported to have sustained serious burn injuries, while the remaining crew member remains missing. The crew member who sustained critical injuries has been directed to the base hospital in Kalmune. However, the Navy spokesman said that there was still no information regarding one of the crew members.
Was basically charter vessel that was carrying the crude oil for Indian Oil Corporation. It was carrying it from Kuwait, and yes, there was a fire which was conveyed in the engine room of the vessel, and with the due strongest of intervention of our tri-forces, Sri Lankan Navy, Sri Lankan Air Force, and the continuous engagement from their side, this fire has been a short while back brought under control. There have been no casualties reported. There has not been any oil. The fire had been controlled, confined to the engine room. Certainly, as far as this particular ship is concerned, it doesn't carry any correlation with the supplies as far as our country, Sri Lanka, is concerned.
In the latest development in the government's war on drugs, several suspects have been arrested by police for drug racketeering. This includes a couple who were nabbed while transporting heroin hidden inside coconuts. What's more, the Excise Special Operations Bureau of the Southern Province raided a cannabis field in Tanamalvila and arrested 4 suspects.
The police have arrested a couple transporting heroin hidden inside coconuts in Pinadua this morning. During the search operation, the police seized 500.65 grams of heroin inside the coconuts. The police also seized 5 mobile phones, 3 motorcycles and 140,000 rupees cash earned by the suspects through drug racketeering. The arrested suspects are residents of Dadala in Gaul. Interrogations of the suspect also led to the arrest of an 18-year-old girl with a sum of 140,000 rupees cash in her possession. In the meantime, the Uvakuda Oya police arrested a suspect with 2.09 grams of heroin hidden inside his shoe. The 34-year-old suspect has been identified as Lakshman Dushit Kumara, alias Tsunami Kalua, who is a resident of Telulla. The police also seized a pair of shoes, a watch and a mobile phone belonging to the suspect. In another development, the Padukka police arrested 4 suspects, including Chaminda Roshan, alias Migodo Chauwa, with 240 packets containing 19 grams of heroin. The arrested suspects have operated a drug racket and have utilized the easy cash method to receive payments. According to police, the suspect Chaminda Roshan has been involved in several crimes, which include murder as well. Elsewhere in Badovita, the Mount Lavinia police arrested drug racketeer Badovita Vasa yesterday with 4 grams of heroin in his possession. Furthermore, a sum of more than 200,000 rupees in cash was also seized from the suspect's possession at the time of his arrest. In a combined operation, 4 suspects were arrested by the Police Special Task Force and the Sri Lankan Navy in Lunugamwera and Pannegamwa last night, with a total of 672 grams of crystal methamphetamine, commonly known as ice, in their possession. This is considered the largest haul of ice seized in Tisamarama. Meanwhile, officers of the anti-corruption unit of the Panadura Police Division arrested 3 suspects including Nishanta Silva, alias Malua, from Malamulla while transporting 1 kilogram of cannabis and 6 grams of heroin. In another development, a suspect was arrested with 20 grams of heroin in Kolonnava today, based on information sourced from a mobile phone owned by Kudu Sanda, who was arrested by the Vadikala police yesterday. In the meantime, the Nigambo Crime Investigation Unit arrested 3 suspects with 44 kilograms of cannabis, 5 grams of heroin, 4 grams of ice and 1 million rupees in cash in their possession. Furthermore, 2 vehicles were also seized by police during the operation. Meanwhile, the Excise Special Operations Bureau of the Southern Province raided a cannabis field in Tanamal Villa yesterday and arrested 4 suspects during the operation. In a separate development, the Attorney General has concluded filing 2,480 cases related to drugs and filed 2,000 indictments in the High Court during the past 15 months.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa outlined plans to increase yields for small plantation crops with officials of the plantation sector this morning at the Presidential Secretariat. The officials were told of government plans to develop crops including sugarcane, maize, cashew, pepper, cinnamon, cloves and betel, including export promotion. Meanwhile, in response to pleas from the residents of the Lankagama village last week, a team of SLT engineers visited the area to look into provision of telecommunication and internet facilities.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa held discussions with officials of the plantation sector this morning at the Presidential Secretariat. This discussion was held on the future plans of the State Ministry of Industries and Export Promotion related to the development of small plantation crops including sugarcane, maize, cashew, pepper, cinnamon, cloves and betel. The discussion was also attended by subject ministers, the secretaries, ministry officials and representatives of growers' associations. The discussions also centered on meeting the domestic demand for turmeric and pepper and formal export plans for the crops. It was revealed that 80,000 hectares of maize are currently being cultivated, of which the government aims to increase this to 110,000 hectares by the end of next year. Also revealed were plans to cultivate cinnamon in 100 villages, and the government also plans to establish an export zone in the Kurundaga Hatakma area. The president pointed out that Pakistan was a major buyer of Sri Lankan betel and that exports had declined due to the restrictions on air travel due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, a team of Sri Lanka telecom engineers was sent to the Lankagama village to look into the possibilities of providing communication facilities requested by the villagers' residents on the 29th of August to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa during an inspection visit.
එතුමා ශනිකවම කිව්වා SLT සමාගම හරහා එම පහසුකම් ලබා දෙන බව. එය ඇසූ පමණම අප SLT සමාගම ඉංජිනේරු කණ්ඩායමක් එම ගමට යවුවා. ඔවුන් නවීන තාක්ෂණය භාවිතා කරලා පරීක්ෂණ කරලා අප එම ගමට sannivedana සහ අන්තර්ජාල පහසුකම් ඉතා කෙටි කාලයෙන් ලබා දීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
We'll return after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In your business news, Ambassador of the European Union to Sri Lanka, Dennis Chaibi, says that Sri Lanka's future in the world of trade is with the European Union due to its inherent reliability as a partner. It also highlighted that Sri Lanka has a competitive advantage with the Union in the form of the GSP+, adding that the EU is in talks with the government on a potential extension of the GSP+, provided that certain conditions are met. Speaking at the event held in Colombo, themed Sustainable Supply Chains as driver for global competitiveness, the ambassador insisted the EU remains a better choice for Sri Lanka, also due to its high GDP per capita levels, which remains 3 times higher on average than China.
The kick-off conference on the joint initiative of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation in Sri Lanka and the delegation of German Industry and Commerce in Sri Lanka on sustainable supply chains as a driver for global competitiveness was held in Colombo yesterday.
Sri Lanka exports for more than 4 billion euros of products every year to the EU, and the EU exports less than 2 billion to Sri Lanka. So there's a net trade balance of 2.1 billion in favor of Sri Lanka. And despite the fact that European net balance is in deficit, we are happy about it. The labor standards in Sri Lanka are the best in South Asia. In terms of Human Development Index, Sri Lanka is at the vanguard. So we are very happy to have a trade deficit with a country that has such advanced standards. In the future, obviously, we wish Sri Lankan exporters to be able to export more to India or to China. China exports to Sri Lanka 4 billion of products, $4 billion. And Sri Lanka exports to China 200 million. So with the money that Sri Lanka makes from Europeans, it pays the product that it imports from China. And it's fine. This is trade. And Europe is in favor of trade. But why the future is also in Europe is we are very reliable. All tariffs remain the same. They are predictable. Our legal system is predictable. And I hope that your experiences are, or business people are predictable. So we think that in the future there will be always a good case for Sri Lanka EU trade. You know, you may say, Europe is going with so much regulation that it's not worth it. It's worth it. The GDP per capita in Europe is still 3 times on average than in China and 15 times of India. Before there can be a proper catch-up, you have time to make much more profit with Europe. With Europe, you have a competitive advantage in the form of GSP+. GSP+ was supposed to end in 3 years, but it's not. Because of the crisis, the GDP per capita has gone below the graduation level. So from next year onward, there are at least 3 years of GSP+, provided all the conditions are fulfilled. One of the conditions is precisely on human rights. If there is a positive situation on human rights and on other things, if there's no degradation, one can assume that there's at least GSP+ until 2025. And now it's for the government to decide if it wants to continue to fulfill the conditions. We are engaging and we are confident the government will engage back. In Sri Lanka, trade is just a one-way street. In Europe, trade is a two-way street. We accept a lot of imports from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has to accept some exports from Europe. So that's an important point.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.